For over 22 years, my wife, Kathryn, and I have been running a company together. That's a crazy statement to make, and it's amazing how it surprises so many people. And they go right off the bat, how could you do that? I could never work with my spouse. But some of you do work with your spouse. And today we're going to tell stories about how we've survived, the things we've gotten stuck on, and why we love it so much. I think it's going to be helpful, so let's jump in. How could you ever work with your spouse? That's the question that so many people seem to ask. How do you do that?
I could never do that. That would drive me crazy. How do you do it?
And yet there are lots of couples who are working together, want to work together, like to work together, and they want to work together more effectively and efficiently. Because we've done it we've had our company for over 22 years. But even before that, we worked together in other companies.
Yep.
And so we've done a lot of stuff together and we still like it.
Funny how that sounded like a question. Yes.
And we still like doing a lot. Matter of fact, we were talking over our last vacation of just how much we enjoy spending time together personally, but how much we enjoy working together, working on projects together. Over the last 22 years of this company and the other companies that we have either tried to start and failed or
it happens
or own, what for you is the reason why you want to work? Why you like having us work together?
I don't know if I could boil it down to one reson, but
it doesn't have to be. Yeah.
I love the fact that I get to just share my entire life with you. Like it's great. We sometimes tease at the end of the day, "Hi, honey, how was your day?"
Right.
Like I was with you most of it, right? So things like the fact that we get to interface with clients together, that we get to learn about these people in our lives together, that we get to travel for work together. Those are some of the major benefits for me. And I think the opportunity and possibility for us as a couple, for couples in business, to be pulling together in the same direction toward a shared goal is really powerful. And it helps kind of align the way that we process and think about just life and living in the pursuit of the goals and dreams that we feel like God's placed in our heart, and we get to pull together to go after those.
Are there moments, I'm thinking about moments that are just challenging or difficult or stuff like that. What are some of the places that are tension for us or tension for why do a lot of people say they can't work together? And then do you relate to those?
I'm sure I relate to some of them. Do you drive me crazy sometimes? Absolutely. But the reality is we're very different in how we think and process information, right? So one of the biggest challenges I think that I've had, and I don't know if this is common for couples, but I've struggled with comparing myself to you and in certain areas feeling like I don't measure up, right? Like I could never do this on my own. I can't carry that conversation by myself, whatever those things are.
Right.
And knowing that there are things that I do really well that are hard for you, which is so there's a plus and a minus, right? So the challenge is the self-talk and the inferiority and feeling like when I don't respond the way that you would, or when I don't have an answer that I think I should have, that you're going to be frustrated with me or think that, oh my gosh, woman, why don't you know these things?
Yeah.
So the communication, the comparison, the figuring out the strengths that we both bring to the table, it's been a journey in that. And it's been a good journey, but there are moments of challenge for sure.
Well, and I think anytime you're running a business or in any kind of leadership role, your goal is like, I'm leading. I want to have people get on board. I want people to think like I'm thinking. Yes, I want them to fill in the gaps, but at the same time, I want us to all be aligned.
Right.
And that can happen with any employee. When it's your spouse, sometimes that's like, why am I having trouble convincing you of an idea? Why do you not see what seems perfectly clear to me?
Well, and the reality is too, and I think this is really common for a lot of couples, you are a much bigger risk taker than I am. I tend to be a little more conservative and a little more like, oh, how's that ever going to happen?
Sure.
So I think that is a challenge that I think couples in business face, where one tends to be more forward thinking and the other one goes, oh no. And that dynamic can get really hard sometimes because, one person can feel held back. The other person can feel pressured into doing something that they don't feel is safe.
Yeah.
And so learning to communicate through those dynamics, those are very real, just ongoing. It's true if you have a business partner, right? But with a spouse, you're then living in that and you take that home and you process that. So that is just reality too.
Yeah. One of the things that you can get frustrated with sometimes, you can have a shorter, less patience with a family member.
Mm-hmm.
Like for us, we work together and our only child works in the company with us.
She does.
Along with the rest of our staff. And we've all worked really hard to make sure that doesn't interfere with the running of the company, but actually accentuates the running of the company. And we've done it quite well. I mean, we have people who like to stick around, and the culture and the community is strong and supported, and everybody encourages everybody else. So there's a lot of good stuff in that's worked out.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, for a small group of people, running a small group of entrepreneurs, of business owners, want to have their family involved. When we had folks in the office this morning, when we had a meeting with a guy who he went into business with his dad.
And his grandfather.
His grandfather passed away, and then his dad took over, and he grew up as a teenager. And then his dad passed away, and he continued running the business, and then finally shut that business down, but stayed in the industry after a year of taking a break, and then opened up something, and now his daughters are involved. So you've got a guy who, he's fourth generation, his daughters are fifth generation in the industry, and they go back to the 1920s, where his grandfather, or the girl's great-grandfather, was running in the furniture business. That's a really cool legacy. But there's this small group of people that we like doing this. We want to have a family business. We want to work together.
Well, let me turn the question around on you. So when it comes to 22 years in this business and previous adventures, what would you say is the hardest part of working with me?
I can't fire you.
I've asked so many times, though. Like, I have literally been like, you should just fire me. That would be amazing.
I think not, and let me qualify. Let me qualify why I say that.
Oh my gosh!
If there's ever a disagreement, sometimes when folks that are related to each other, there's a point at which maybe they shouldn't be working together anymore. They should part ways. But more often than not, that's because somebody's not willing to grow or anything else. But in a lot of situations, the easy way to solve a problem with alignment, or the easy way to solve a problem relationally with an employee or a coworker, is just to let them
part
go.
Ways. Yeah.
And you and I can't fire each other. I mean, you could say, I got to leave. You could quit, but even quitting's not easy. You can't just say, I'm done. I've had it. A, it's usually not mature. And B, we've built such a company that is really a successful company where both of our efforts and skills are needed. Yeah. They provide value to the company, and they create a better culture and everything else for it. So it's not like we're stuck in slaves, but it is part of the formula.
Yeah.
You can't take chocolate chips out of a chocolate chip cookie recipe
and have it still be a chocolate chip cookie.
It just doesn't work. Yeah. So I think I say that tongue in cheek, but at the same time, when there's really difficulties, we have to work through them, because, or when there's disagreements or challenges. And when you want to go somewhere, especially since you don't take risks as easily as I do, you still take risks, and you're good at taking risks. I just happen to accelerate at that sometimes.
Special
or
skill.
Realizing that's the way we've done it, but having the vision to see, I can see just around the next bend a little bit easier than you often. So having to have patience for that. And I think a lot of people, they are impatient with where they're going, and they're more impatient with the spouse. Yeah. How many spouses have we talked to have said, he doesn't listen to me. She won't listen to me. I remember this one couple, who will remain nameless, that had been in business for a while together. And you came home one day from some event where there were just a bunch of ladies and you had a conversation with her. And all of a sudden, for the first time, she goes, how do you guys do it? Because my husband doesn't listen to me. I don't have the same respect or authority or voice at work. He just kind of goes along his own merry way and doesn't really listen to me. So I don't get to contribute. So why would I want to work with, why would somebody want to work with a spouse when the spouse doesn't actually let them contribute or value their input or thought?
It's interesting because I think it's a really important piece of the puzzle, is that we have distinctive roles and responsibilities. We do a lot of things together, but we have distinctive roles and responsibilities. And you have done a good job of allowing me to have authority over the areas that I have authority over and trusting me in that. And it doesn't mean that we're not having conversations about various things and whatever else, but I think that working well together, part of the reason that we do it is because you do have a lot of respect for the strengths that I have, and you trust me. And I have a lot of respect for the strengths that you have, and I trust you. And so having those very clear roles where both spouses are like stepping into that responsibility and owning it, I think is a really important piece. And if one spouse is completely overriding the other all the time, I think that is not only hard on the spousal relationship, but it's hard on the staff. Because then there's it's like tension between mom and dad. This is bad. Nobody likes to work in that world. And it's one of the things that we have both worked for couples where we have seen that. And one of the things that I was really wanting to commit to being careful of is that we would be very, very aware of not taking any disagreement that we have and airing it out in a place that would be inappropriate, right? So having that communication and respect when we're working with our team is also a really important piece of the puzzle. And if one is overriding the other all the time, that's going to be really hard.
Yeah. I think one of the things is learning to value each other's skills, like you were saying, and realizing that sometimes there are skills that the spouse doesn't have for business. They actually have to, if they're going to be successful in business, they actually have to grow. I think that continuing education in any business is really important. Learning to advance your skills, to learn to do things you couldn't do 3, 4, 5 years ago is super important. And I think a lot of people get into trouble, married or otherwise, because they won't grow. And they like, well, what else can I do? And they start doing something that either they want to do, but they have no business doing because nobody would hire them. They don't have the competence and character, or maybe they have the character, but they don't have the competence. Maybe they don't have both. Or they get into a situation where in a business, nobody else can do it. Well, I don't know how to do it, but you're busy doing that, so I'll do this. And they never grow and learn. It's one thing to jump in and go, I'm going to do the best I can. But to just say, well, and to just not be ever growing and just be barely adequate or not adequate, less than adequate. There was this one small business that had been around in Chico for, I want to say 30 years at least. And they finally sold and the company's gone now. It didn't survive the selling and it just disappeared. But they had lots of employees and they had lots of big contracts and all kinds of stuff like that. And I remember having a friend of ours work there, and he had a leadership role in the company, but not senior leadership. And the wife started doing the finances, and she started missing payroll, and she wasn't making payments to their 401ks.
This is unfortunate.
It was unfortunate because all of a sudden these things came out as a surprise, and what they wouldn't do is change it. And the husband, he wouldn't lead well. And so he was just letting her do it. And it was actually the last 5-7 years of the company were kind of an operational mess inside, because you had this thing where it's like, well, I'm part owner, so I can do what I want, as opposed to doing something that you're not competent at.
Right.
And it was a very successful company for a long time. And then it started falling apart on them. A strange life. And I think in the early days, they had somebody else doing those kind of things, especially the finances and payroll and stuff like that. So there's that balance. But then when you talk to couples that are doing really well, they know several things. I think. And I could point to these being successful for us. They know how to value each other and realizing that different people have different gifts and skills, and you need to be competent at something to do it. They know how to deal with conflict well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we do conflict well. I've seen couples where they yell at each other and their drama is wandering all over the company.
Yes.
In front of everybody. So we've always been really careful to do that.
Yeah, like I talked about, yeah.
To maintain each other's dignity. I think when we were new parents, some of the better advice we got was, you will have to discipline your kids. But when you do, make sure you're doing the best you can to maintain their dignity, no matter how old they are. And I carried that over into that idea of, how do I respect other people, no matter how wrong they are or everything else? How do I help maintain their dignity? And how do we treat each other that way?
Yeah. Each other, our employees, everybody. Like, how do we do that? Yeah.
And then when we first got married, we were asked a simple question in some counseling, premarital counseling. You'll remember this. Then it was, list the 3 things that you would like to change about that other person. And we were taught to write it, and we were told to write it down on a 3x5 card. Mm-hmm. That wasn't hard. These are the 3 things, especially when as much as we were in love, we were,
we were in love,
but it wasn't hard to come up with 3 things right in the middle of that. And then the punch line on that whole part of counseling was, okay, would you still marry that person if you couldn't change any of those?
Right. Because the odds are
you won't be able to change the person.
Odds are.
And thinking about that, I think it set a frame of mind for us that not only allowed us to be successful in marriage as one of the elements, but it was also carried over into what we've done. I can see those things carrying over into 32 years of marriage, where you go, okay, this is a big deal. We learned that I'm not always trying to change you at the core level. Like, there's one thing is, I'm challenging you to grow. You're challenging me to grow. It's not okay to just stay at basic adequate, but you're not trying to change the very nature of the person.
Yeah.
Make them into something that they're never going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really important. I mean, and one of the bonuses that we have going for us that allow us to continue to have good conversations about work and marriage and everything else is we have a shared faith. And so having a very core part of both of our identities being, you know what, we're chasing Jesus and we're doing that together. And so even that framework changes how we interact and how we ask questions and how we chase the passion that we have for growing businesses and helping other people. So that piece is really important. It seems to me that we can't escape the question that most people will ask us, which is like, how do you prevent the blurring of the lines? How do you keep work at work and keep home at home? And how do you not bring all your work conversations home? Talk about that a little bit, because that's a big deal for people.
Yeah. I think about farmers. And I think about farmers in the I don't know if it's the pre-industrial days, but definitely, let's say prior to the internet. Okay. Farmers in America
prior to the internet. Got it.
Why would I say that? Because what happens there is everybody lives on the farm and everybody works on the farm at some level. The kids growing up, they work on the farm. The husband and wife, they're involved in the farm. If it's a small farm, everybody's working on all kinds of different levels of it. It's as the farming grows, and here in Northern California, we have lots of large farms. It becomes more of a business because you have more acreage, so you have more people. Sure. You have more layers of management and farm workers and all that kind of stuff. So it turns into more of there's more office work that needs to be done. So your roles change. But your life and your business, the address is the same. And so what you learn to do is, okay, there's some kind of myth that says that the separation between work and private life is supposed to be, work-life balance is actually literally supposed to be separate here and separate here.
Yeah, like a clean break.
And I think if you're dealing with life, you're going, okay, you and I we have a philosophy that doesn't separate work from the rest of our life dramatically.
Yes.
It is a section, a piece of our life.
Yeah.
But it is, we work 40 to 50 hours a week in the office. And then we may be thinking how to solve a problem, because when I'm in the office, I'm doing all these other things. I don't have time to think about it. And so we're going on vacation and it's like, okay, what's that challenge, or what could I do, or whatever. And that might be running through our head, and we might have that conversation in the car. Our daughter, Jenna, right? Now she's, in her late 20s. And when she would say lots of times, all you guys do is ever talk about work. The drama of it all. So extreme.
Poor thing.
But there were lots of times when we talked about all kinds of other stuff, and it was intermingled in it. What I think was important for us, going back to the farm analogy, is you make sure that all parts of life are important. The relationships are important. The marriage is important. The kids are important. And the modeling of this is our life. Work is our life. And there are things at home that need our attention. Great. We've been talking about work enough. We're not getting the lawn mowed, or the garbage isn't taking out, or there are repairs that need to happen. How are we going to do that? And even having our daughter working for us, conversations can be, well, let's talk about that. What she used to complain about, now sometimes she drives the conversation towards. Being okay that it's not totally separate.
Yeah.
And being very attuned to the fact that it must be, you cannot talk about one subject to the neglect of other subjects.
Right. Yeah.
And so what do we talk about otherwise? And sometimes the simple, very tactical, what do you do, is sometimes we're both concerned about a subject at work and we don't have resolution on it yet because it's a problem we're trying to solve. We take the moment to talk about it. But we know we can only take so much, because if we're with other people, our daughter or friends, as soon as you talk about work, you isolate them from the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when we're just on a date, it's like, okay, we're done talking about that. One of us can just raise our hand and go, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Let's talk about something else.
Yep. Yeah, I think understanding that it's not clean is a really important concept. I mean, any more than, we will say, you bring your whole self to work, right? People are like, leave everything at home that's at home. Like, there's no place here. Like, we're whole humans. We bring our whole selves to work. So when we're working together, of course we have conversations about work at home, but we do have that freedom to be like, I can't. Like, I need to do something else, think about something else. We need to solve this. We need to pay attention to this relationship, this friendship, this whatever. We do those things fluidly. At this point, we've been doing it a long time, but it's a very important part of it.
Yeah. I think the disciplines of good communication, healthy relationships, no matter what, making sure that you're listening to other people where they are, and having conversation as opposed to monologue. One of the things I think about sometimes is there are spouses, and more men than women are running the company. So that's just the stats across the board. And so you have, more often than not, it seems like with the people we interact with, the majority, well over 50%, are men that are driving the company, and women that are if they're a husband and wife team, women that are a part of it. And the ones that seem to wrestle the most is when the spouse who's driving the company, oftentimes these men that I think are numpties, because they don't want to grow. They're just always talking. They're always this, they're always there. And their answer is, well, yeah, there's problems in this, and they're defending themselves. And I don't know if they've worked their way into a place where one person is attacking the other person on a regular basis. The other person's trying to defend themselves. And it started out with, they should have been listening more, and then it became a nagging relationship either way, or what. But there's people who just go, this is who I am, and I'm proud of it. No matter how much harm it comes or bothers you. And they can figure out a way to justify it. I think those are the most unsuccessful marriages in business. And it's when people that really value and honor those gifts in each other, they're good at talking about things. And they realize that when they share a life together that is work and family and all that, that there are other subjects that need attention and need to be paid attention to. And they need to be learning to grow in how you discipline, how you talk about that.
Yeah.
And I think those are helping because when you care about each other, and it really helps, I think, if the married couple likes each other.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that sounds like an obvious, but when they all
yeah.
like each other, it's amazing. So, I mean, I think that's a really good a refresher on the conversation of what is it like for us to be married and what we've noticed that makes really successful businesses that are family businesses run by a couple.
Yep. And I would say the benefits outweigh the challenges all day, every day. So I highly recommend it if you like your spouse.